Here we go. Boom. My fault. 1.42. $1.42 million. Yep. Libertarians being hypocrites? No way. Majestic says lots of companies just paid out bonuses and pocketed the rest because some percentage had to go to the employees. Yep. So your company did, and your business was booming under COVID. Yep. The PPP bill was absolutely wasteful. Absolutely wasteful. It was grifting. Remember who signed it? Anyone? Yep. The Paycheck Protection Program was enacted a part of the CARES Act. All right. All the paycheck program's original $349 billion was allocated between April 3rd and April 16th, 2020. Who was in charge of the government when that happened? Right? Just saying. Just saying. And Congress removed, yeah. Suchi Blonde Strawberry 215. Yes, reminder for all the people who want to shit on liberals and Democrats for their tax and spend policies, which, by the way, lefty governments do tend to increase spending. It's 100% true. This one is on the other side. Just saying. Thomson Reuters. This is an interesting one. You're a lawyer. We learned so much about you, my friend. You use their product, Westlaw, for researching. They just acquired CaseText, which claims to be an advanced AI machine learning company. Its key products include CoCounsel and AI Legal Assistant. Ooh. TRI. OMG. Guys, this is an AI company. I don't know shit. I'm gonna be honest. I'm dumb. I'm sorry. My head is full of fuck. I don't know. But yeah, you might be right. Yeah, this feels like a promo stock. I'm gonna be honest. This feels like something promo gives a shit about. Yeah, but Thomson Reuters is it's an interesting one. Yeah. I would want to know more about them. Yeah, it's interesting. XC Runner says, so many companies gained efficiencies off that crash grab and are making way more money here than they historically have. Thank you. Thank you. That's part of the big reason I've spoken about the fact that I am a big believer in size, quote, size queen. It's because a lot of those companies looked at what happened during COVID. Classic example, Amazon. Amazon practiced good management 101. All right. Do you know what happened when interest rates got really low? They took out a bunch of debt and they expanded their retail footprint, their fulfillment footprint, their last mile capabilities. They bought trucks, truck depots, okay? A lot of distribution centers, even more data centers. They did all of that when interest rates were cheap. Why? So they wouldn't have to do it now. Another example, and I know we've talked about them before, all right? I joked about it in a Discord channel about how Mo and Promo, porn to them was describing what Altria ticker MO, did. All right? They basically refinanced almost all their debt during COVID, and they have no concern. They don't give a fuck about interest rates. Do you think Apple cares about interest rates right now? No. All right? This is good management. Mo, caffeine's calling you. Steely Hands, you had a big meeting at work today. They introduced a new insert company name GPT for looking up info on documents. Interesting. $127 billion in paper being sold on Monday and Tuesday. That's interesting. Soaring Kiwi is correct. Big boys will eat the small boys. Giggity. Yep. ATKR, everything needed to upgrade electrical infrastructure. I like that sounds of that. It's an industrial. Oh my God. They do seem cheap because you're basically saying this is a company that in the last 12 months pulled 19 bucks in EPS, and for the next 12 months is going to get about 16 and a half. This doesn't seem like a shitco. It's an interesting call out. They most recently had some insider sales, but actually pretty small. Caffeine says that's not good because yields go up again because no one will buy. We'll see. I don't know if you think they're doing some fives along with the usual bill issuance. Yeah. I don't know if that's a huge issue or not. I'll let Mo be the judge. She is the person I trust the most in bondage. Yeah. MP Materials? What do they look like right now? Absolute dog shit. It's a former SPAC. Only rare earth mining company in the U.S. Steely, you around? They're your baby, right? You talk a lot about MP. The problem is you can be a rare earth mining company. The value's in processing. Again, Steely, correct me where I'm wrong. It's supposedly a good company. It's supposedly a good company. I know that much. Only mining company in the US, but still ramping up the processing. Finally commissioned phase 1. I mean, they're getting fucking bodied. Look where they are. This was a former SPAC, right? I'm not crazy when I say that. Yeah, they have that $10. That's a sign of a SPAC. They're getting fucking destroyed. You like MP? They went on volume alone because their mine is so big, but don't have existing expertise with the processing, and some issues with only having customers in China, which is probably what's dragged them down. But they signed an agreement to sell processed materials to Japan. Interesting. Black Raven, everyone, get your dumpsters out for Black Raven. I'm so sorry, Black Raven. Get your Wendy's dumpsters out. You wanted to buy dipshit today, DPST, we call it dipshit. Missed the order by a few cents, almost caught the bottom. Well, if it makes you feel better, I woke up this morning. I even placed an order, but it was aggressive. I did not buy AMC puts today, and I was wanting to. The CEO of MP is an interesting guy. How interesting is he? Like Lorenzo Gonzalez interesting? By the way, I don't think we covered it. S-Mark pulled out of the bidding, which is not a shock to anyone. Charles Gasparino, lesson for young reporters out there who get caught in the trap of wanting to be liked on Twitter. Christmas 2021, I had prostate cancer and COVID. Fire Gasparino trended because I reported that the AMC apes were gambling away money. Instead of caving, I kept reporting. I'm glad I did. He's just dunking on apes now. Oh, God. Finance guy. That's not good. Need to get Lorenzo Gonzalez up in the fucking house. Suchi, why is there no ETFs with shorts companies that are about to bankrupt? I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, the V Bears are doing today. Silky Thighs is pretty smart, calling out Woof. Interesting. It's Petco. Why is Marvell down? It's a boring company at this point. Boring. If I remember correctly, Marvell basically came in line on both revenue and guide, or sorry, revenue and EPS, and then their guide I think was like in line. But Marvell, unfortunately, is expensive for a semiconductor company that's not giving you shit back. They're still growing. How is Home Depot looking? Home Depot is another stock, boomer stock I want to keep my eye on. Pull up, I like this comment. You love how Reddit is convinced of a real estate bubble while they completely ignored crypto, which has zero intrinsic value. Yep. Ooh, Ace, how you doing, my friend? This is a good comment. VFS, VinFast Auto. Up just another 35%. Totally normal. Totally normal. So caffeine, Mo is telling you right now, just looks like the usual monthlies, 2s to 7s. Only about a $6 billion increase over July, so feels probably like a bit of a nothing burger. Promo is just dying to short this fucker. He's gonna get abducted by a Vietnamese hit squad and taken to the lair of some like billionaire in Vietnam. Get murdered as shit. Yeah, you gonna die. VFS is like the IPO Rivian on steroids. I've at least seen a Rivian in the wild. Thank you, Mo. I try to learn. This Elon Musk sends out an email. Due to the nature of the Cybertruck, which is made of bright metal with mostly straight edges, any dimensional variation shows up like a sore thumb. All parts for this vehicle, whether internal or from suppliers, need to be designed and built to sub 10 micron accuracy. Someone responded to that. Engineers and machinists worldwide are rightly screaming into the void at the sight of this email. Sub 10 micron accuracy? Did he maybe mean sub 10,000, or is he just crazy? Or will each Cybertruck cost as much as an SLS launch? Dylan Patel's response. My favorite thing about this episode is that sub 10 micron is child's play in semiconductors. A fab will literally execute through millions of process steps, wafers per day, with far lower tolerances. Yeah, of course. You shouldn't get as much lag. Shouldn't. 10 microns, that's the size of Trump's hand. Mo, I don't like the headlights. It's the only issue. John Lemon, when will VFS get its option chain? I don't know if it will. Agree to disagree? Fair enough. Machinists can join the software engineers who've also been screaming in the void. Yeah. Daddy Long calls, yeah. Sub 10 microns is something the size of his truck is. Yeah, I would probably agree. By the way, quick reminder. I think this should be saved in my history. So, Asianometry did a cool video. This is extremely nerdy. High NA and hyper NA EUV update. I would encourage you guys to listen to it if you care. Talking about the different process steps required to move from current generation EUV lithography to, quote, high NA. High NA is the next generation of EUV tools. It's expected to hit fab floors within 2 years. I think it starts high volume manufacturing in 2025. It's insane. It's nuts. It's just a bigger version, but they deal with some crazy physics. Zirconium, you read a thing yesterday that said there are some people who are worried about Elon's drug use. Apparently, he used sleeping pills, and there are some Tesla insiders who have been wondering if his erratic behavior lately has been due to something like that. It certainly does seem like something is definitely off with him. I don't... All right, let's chat. This is something I'm loath to do. I'm going to do it anyway, though. All right? Elon is very autistic. Trust me. I know. All right? I know. Elon, if I could give you one bit of guidance, is you need to find someone you trust who is not as autistic as you, to have that person be a sounding board to keep your craziness, your wildness intact. All right? Trust me, I know. I know. I don't think it has to do necessarily with the drugs. I think it has to do when you combine his level of autism with drugs. And that does. If Elon had a sounding board, he could still gain all the benefits from the unique way his brain is wired. He could still get the utility from it, but at the same time, have a filter for some of the shit that's nuts. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Air with the 8% swing today. Yay. Last time he tried to find that person, Amber Heard. I said someone as smart, roughly as smart as him, just less autistic. I mean, you're not going to like my next comment on this one, but I've also said a similar thing about Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had true advisors he trusted and respected, he would have been a generational president. I believe that. I really do believe that. Have you seen The Accountant? Yes, I have. Got to weaponize the autism. Daddy Long Calls is calling out Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg has his wife. Priscilla Chan's a fucking smart one. I don't think nearly enough people realize the role she plays in his life. I guarantee you. Mark Zuckerberg gets a lot of the filtering through the brilliance of his wife, who's not nearly as autistic as he is. Trump tried to have it advised with McConnell. Yeah, and it made it. Yeah, I've heard that before. And once again, the market is here to fuck over as many people as possible. Why not? We're at 441 right now. GG. When she appears in interviews with Mark, she does a good job humanizing him. Yeah, I mean, he met her. If you know the background, by the way, Priscilla Chan, he met at Harvard. She's a smart woman. All right. She did not marry Mark for money. They knew each other in college. Jordy, but is that type of personality conducive to having trusted people? A little bit. It's like saying fascism would be a good system if people are con. It kind of comes down to what was the out. Like, basically, do you think Trump's a fascist because of what he instinctively thinks or what he's tried to do? If he had someone who could tell him, hey, what you're trying to do, no, do this instead. You get what you want and you'll be less of a tool, right? Apparently, Trump asked the Pentagon about launching missiles into Mexico. Rad says, your fear is a competent Trump. I agree. Mine too. We all need someone like that. A sounding board, that is. Yeah, but the one thing that I would say is that oftentimes, like with autism, the things that for a neurotypical person are like, oh, that's easy, you know? That's the stuff oftentimes with the autistic person you need to like go through. If you were president, there'd be so many what if we do this? Yeah. Well, there was a book that discussed this, but like specifically the Clinton White House back in the day. Clinton used to populate the White House with a ton of super smart people. One of the issues behind it is they'd get into very, very long winded debates, big academic discussions that would oftentimes go very late into the night discussing, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? A lot of people used to say the Clinton administration was almost paralyzed to the point of inaction, where then you had the George W. Bush administration afterward, where the comment was the last person in the room with George W. Bush oftentimes got what they wanted because he'd listen for 5 minutes to a debate and say, all right, so it sounds like it's option A or B. That's fine. Then he'd kick all people out of the room, maybe except for one or two. He'd shrink the room. Yeah. You mean the Dick Cheney administration? Oh boy, different. The man had a knack for finding good brain. Yeah. Fucking great comment. The Halliburton administration. I am one of the biggest detractors from President Bush. I will maintain he was one of the worst presidents in terms of what he actually accomplished. And I will still fight back against anyone who says George W. Bush was evil, because that man kept Dick Cheney from doing his worst impulses, and Dick Cheney was evil. Dick Cheney led the neocons, the neoconservative movement. And people talk about neoconservatism without actually studying it, without actually knowing what it means. Neoconservatism was a principle that post-fall of the Soviet Union, when you had a brief glimpse into a unipolar world, it was not just the ability of the US to impose its will on the global social order, but there was a responsibility to do it. Yep. Dick Cheney versus Karl Rove. What's my pick? Dick Cheney was more evil. Karl Rove. Karl Rove is cut from the cloth that previously produced James Carville and Lee Atwater. Yep. Didn't George W. Bush use Fed money to run his re-election? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. Bush managed to get attacked by Afghanistan and create ISIS out of it. That's a true statement. Soaring Kiwi, this is, by the way, correct. Bush's ability to make quick decisions at critical times was spot on. This happened to be very important during his terms. Yeah. Some of his decisions were bad. Okay? I mean, Paul J. Bremer, to me, is what I will consider the number one person behind the rise of ISIS. The Majestic, there were plenty of dirtbags. You mentioned Bremer, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz. By the way, Bremer, you're not going to look at this guy and think he's evil. He just instituted one of the worst policies ever called de-Baathification. There's the word. 2 A's. That's not a misspelling. The Baath is B-A-A-T-H. All right? This is a cool history lesson. The Baath was a political party in Iraq, also Syria. All right? It's a political party. It was Saddam's political party that he took over. All right? And then what happens is when the U.S. topples Saddam and tries to build a new government, they put a policy in place which says no one in the Baath party can participate at the highest levels of the military or the civilian government. Think about that for a second. All right? A lot of people joined the Baath party because it was a way to, quote, feed their family and rise in the political service. These were not necessarily evil people. Some of them absolutely were. But it became political retribution. You banned an entire political party from participating in post-invasion Iraq's reconstruction. What do you think happened to those people? Particularly the ones, the generals. What do you think happened? Yeah. This was the rise of ISIS. You took the remnants of Zarqawi's group, all right, especially post-Zarqawi's death, and all of a sudden now you gave them a lot of military experience that they didn't necessarily have. You created what became ISIS. Raul Duke, the 2000s neocon public policy had no understanding of the intricate tribal and religious internal relations of the Middle East. No, it didn't, because it was literally the entire founding, the entire premise behind neoconservatism is that post-fall of the Soviet Union, now that you had unipolarity, now that the US was top dog, it had a rare window in which it could ignore all that shit. And it could basically say, we will reclassify, we will reconstruct all these socio-political, economic, religious tensions across the planet, and we can bend them and shape them to our will. Not only that, if we didn't do it, that window would close, and then you would have the rise of multipolarity, which, by the way, you are seeing today with all the conversation about BRICS. Yeah, Kissinger would have been so proud. Mearsheimer as well. All the realpolitik folks, all the people who talked about realism in international relations that says when one country gets way too powerful, the natural state of order is for others to band up to, quote, counter them. Raul Duke says they also failed to realize the ethnic tensions in Afghanistan, yep, and empowered the ethnic minorities, fueling a big Pashtun backlash, aka Taliban. Yeah, because their number one enemies were, quote, the Northern Alliance, which is predominantly Tajik. Tajik, short for Tajikistan. But remember, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, all of them, those borders were drawn by drunk Brits. They intersected tribal lands. It's more important to them. Anyway. Yeah, that's my way of saying if you think you've seen evil today, y'all need to do some research. Particularly Zarqawi. All right, that motherfucker was evil. Absolutely evil. That's why it's funny, like if you grew up in the war on terror, and then you get to hear all these people talking about, oh, well, post-COVID, we're going to see like the economy collapse or all of that. You kind of laugh at a lot of like the doomers, like the real hardcore doomers that are selling Substacks. You're like, shit. The U.S. is resilient. We've dealt with worse. The U.S. spent too much time asking generals how to manage cultural needs of Iraq. Yeah, I mean, the entire premise behind, again, neoconservatism is the idea that we're going to be best suited to, quote, rebuild Iraq. We never should have tried. Genghis Khan was a real motherfucker. Get it? Motherfucker. I know where you're going with that. Yeah. Yeah, this is the stuff I used to research and read up on a lot. Already, I actually love this comment. We had a window of opportunity of unipolarity, and it was wasted on bombing dudes in sandals instead of going to Mars or removing lead from pipes. Yep. Sorry, Kiwi, you know you could always do streams dedicated to the history info for once in a while. Instead of doing market stuff, you reckon it'd be a hit? And I don't know how interested people are in this shit. Like, what do I bring to the table? There's better historians than me. All right? I'm just an autist with a library and a good memory. Zirconium, this is a good one. You feel like it's the argument against the U.S. being more isolationist too. We're the most powerful country on Earth right now. What happens when we seclude ourselves at the expense of others? Do other countries start grouping together? Yes. Yeah. Be entertaining. Fair enough. I will make the argument right now, and I think you guys have heard me say this. The greatest weapon the U.S. has right now, the greatest weapon by far the U.S. has, will remain our economy and our ability to connect with other countries and help build them out. That's why, by the way, I'm really comfortable in saying China's not invading Taiwan. The second China even tries, their youth unemployment problem becomes a much, much bigger problem. They can't kill off their youth to solve their youth unemployment issue. All right? The biggest concern Xi Jinping had, and he saw firsthand how it would go, was how quickly the U.S. was able to isolate Russia economically. China don't want that smoke. Trust me. Tinfoil hat. They want to solve the youth unemployment by throwing the unemployed in the meat grinder, but they can't. Here's the reason why. It's because of their demographics. The U.S. theoretically could, because we import people. We have immigration. Iran back in the 70s, 80s could, because they had a predominantly young population. India, this is a concern, by the way, India can. China doesn't have the demographics, and they know it. Counterpoint. Taiwan citizens aren't European enough to get all of Europe on their side like Ukraine. They don't have to be, though. They don't have to be. Unfortunately, the difference between Ukraine and Taiwan, Ukraine has to beat Russia. Taiwan doesn't have to beat China. Taiwan just has to make it very fucking painful. The bigger issue that you're going to see there, though, is the reaction specifically of Korea, Japan, and Philippines. If China invades their neighbor, that's the greatest propaganda case for every of those countries, being told, hey, you guys want to keep those relations with China, that's fine, but look what they'll do. That any Chinese civil war that happens. Yeah, the day that I mean, by the way, all of this is a moot point, by the way. If on the political side, during Taiwanese presidential elections, which are coming up, if someone is stupid enough to say, my first act as president is to announce independence or to hold a referendum for independence, all of this is a moot point. China will invade. That's a matter of policy. They have promised that. They absolutely will. Reed Villa, this is a good question. Are we giving up on China? No, I don't think we should. I don't think we should. I think the U.S. needs to be in a position to realize we are partners with China. And if anything, China has done some things in the last year that literally, when I was studying China, okay, in grad school, people said this is not what China does. Does anyone know what happened between Iran and Saudi Arabia? China was able to mediate a thaw in their relations. They have embassies opening up now. China helped that happen. Traditionally, when China interacts with another country, all right, it's very much bilateral, so between China and them, and it's usually economic in nature. That's the whole African quote that says, when America talks to us, you know, they tell us a list of things we can and can't do. When China talks to us, they give us a hospital, right? Raul Duke, you don't know if China and Korea would actually fight for Taiwan. Keep your eyes on Japan specifically. And supposedly the answer is really rapidly moving towards yes. Lambo Skyline, who are you telling to stop reading Zero Hedge? Because I will agree with that statement 100%. Raul Duke, you wonder what would happen if Mao forbid Xi Jinping gets whacked? Ooh, it'd be bad. Japan is pretty vulnerable if they lose their navy. Yeah, but they're building. Japan's increasing their military spend pretty significantly for a country that traditionally doesn't. Suchi says, no war can be won when the only way is an amphibious assault. Not only that, but if you know your geography on Taiwan, most of that island is surrounded by cliffs. They don't have a lot of flat beaches in Taiwan. Ironically, where they do, they put their fucking fabs. Thoughts on TSMC? Great company. You have to play a bit of a long game now. Really big long game. Does Taiwan have anything important besides the semiconductor industry? I mean, like what? 25 million people? Lambo Skyline, this is a good question. Should we be worried about the BRICS nations using anything but US dollars to settle? No, not at all. The US is a reserve currency. We don't give a shit about being a, quote, settlement currency. They can settle currency in however they want. But in the end, a lot of these countries turn around, buy our bonds, buy our dollars to store to keep the volatility of their own currencies in check. You want to know when the US needs to get concerned is when other countries aren't buying our treasuries or buying our dollars. That's why we can't keep running massive deficits. So I think Ukraine might turn into Japan 2.0. I have no clue. It's a good question. Yeah, contrary to popular belief, guys, the US's partnership with Taiwan is not because of their semiconductor industry. It doesn't hurt. I know it doesn't hurt. But the US has been the ally of Taiwan when Taiwan was just assembling electronics before they became leading edge semiconductors. I've seen a lot of people who seem to think the only reason we give a shit about them is semiconductors. No. No. We cared about them before. Anyway, crack spreads. Look at them go. Who can guess why this is bullish? Who can guess why this is bullish for the overall market, particularly if you want to see inflation drop? By the way, this feels like a bit of chart crime. Do we know what this looks like when you drill out? For those that don't know, crack spread. This is the difference in price between refined products made of oil versus oil itself. So basically, think profit margin for refiners. It's a really important thing. I'd love to see this drilled out because this only covers, 4 days? Yeah, it's all-time high for this time of year. You mentioned this previously, yeah. Either way, the spreads going high means lots of profit right now for refiners. Okay, so Valero MPC should be doing really well. VLO MPC. All right. Now, here's the thing. If you are bullish on the market, hoping that inflation stays down, and everyone keeps saying, but oil, commodities, this is one of the levers. All right. Remember, you as a consumer you don't buy oil, you buy refined products. All right. Promo, we're going to cover that in a second. I'll talk about that. So I saw the visual, and I'm not. It doesn't look like it was a process fire. We buy crack. Fuck off. All right. But this is essentially the profit made by refiners. All right. And if you see this going up, it's obviously good for those companies, but it gives you a lot of room for where you can eventually see oil prices not necessarily going down, but you could eventually see gasoline prices go down because higher spreads tend to bring in more interest in refining. All right. This is profitable as fuck right now for refiners. Good. All right, MPC for a second. Let me show them data fire. This is Marathon Petroleum Company, which is, believe it or not, the refining company, which annoys the shit out of me because the other side of Marathon is MRO, Marathon Refining. And unfortunately, that's the upstream company, i.e. they just pull oil out of the ground. It's the most annoying thing. Yeah. Okay. So someone just said the first thing, by the way, that I was looking at. When I saw this video earlier this morning, I took a look at it and I said, looks like a storage fire. This looks like a storage fire. This does not look like a production unit fire. And if you're wondering why I said that, it's because the storage units, those big fucking tanks, are right here. And in the background, you can see the distillation towers for production units. Put it like this. You don't want to see anything on fire, particularly at a refinery complex. If you're going to see a fire, though, this is probably one of the better ones to see. Okay? A gigantic bowl of hydrocarbons on fire is much better than in that background, all those production units being on fire. This just means you have one fewer tank and you lost some inventory. Over there means you lose production. Does that make sense? So good to see that someone said the same thing I did. Looks like a large fire at the MPC Garyville, Louisiana refinery. It appears to be limited to a storage tank. So this should not directly impact gas prices. Yeah, blaze at a storage tank. Good. They're still shutting down the refinery, by the way. That's a safety precaution. That actually makes perfect sense. So there may be slight disruption, but this is not horrible. Will they be fined? Almost certainly, yeah. This is definitely an emission situation, but not destructive. I had a process engineer tell me once at ExxonMobil that every time we lit up our flares, every time our flares got activated, I think they said it was like a $5 million fine, something like that. By the way, it was always cheaper to use the flares than whatever the fuck the alternative was. So. Next week earnings, sure thing. Next week's earnings are spicy. Next week's earnings are spicy, guys. Look where we are. First of all, computer hardware. Dell on Thursday. HPE, which is Hewlett Packard Enterprise. They handle the data center side, the enterprise side, hence in the name. And HPQ, which is HP Compact, the personal computer side. All right. Those two are on Tuesday. Dell's on Thursday. Really interesting to hear what their commentary is going to be. Wednesday, it's Cybersecurity and Software Day. CrowdStrike, Okta, Pure Storage, Viva, and Salesforce all occur on Wednesday. All right, that's interesting. Monday's a dead day. Friday sucks. All I'll do is worry about Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Thursday after close, though, you got some spiciness, guys. Lulu, Broadcom, MongoDB, SentinelOne, all on Thursday. Polestar, yep, Thursday morning. I'm cheering for them, by the way. I want them to do well. You have a bank, UBS. Sorry, European shitcos. Campbell Soup. Dollar General. Also, you have Best Buy on Tuesday. What does Best Buy look like? I assume like shit. Oh, looks like the SPY took a bit of a dip. God damn. You definitely want calls on MongoDB. I thought there was a channel check that said they were doing well. Yeah, MongoDB is spicy. MongoDB is a spicy company. Mobeth, can you help me make sure you understand them? Sure. Upstream is finding reserves. Midstream is transportation to refiners. And downstream is refining whatever happens, refined products. Yes. Yes. You hear the term with oil companies, E&P, exploration and production. Exploration, finding oil, production, pulling it out of the ground. So that's combined what we call upstream. All right. Midstream is transportation, usually pipelines, by the way. And then also storage, by the way, tends to get grouped in there. Downstream is not just refining, though. It also tends to include what they call marketing. So honestly, it's selling it. And Bitaska says correctly, and then it's integrated majors. Yes. Do they still use the term Five Sisters? Seven Sisters. Yeah, big oil is another expression. Yeah. ExxonMobil, Shell, Total, BP, Chevron, Marathon, Phillips 66, Valero, Eni, and ConocoPhillips. The boomer oil analysts do. Fuck off. Yeah, integrated is, so for example, ExxonMobil had both upstream and downstream. So ExxonMobil pulled oil out of the ground and then also refined it. Now, what's really fucked up, this is a cool point. I had to learn this one. Oil is a commodity. Just because ExxonMobil runs oil fields, runs production, always in partnership with others, by the way. All right. Even though they do that, it's not like oil pulled from an ExxonMobil production site or an oil field, then is transported via ExxonMobil ships to ExxonMobil refineries, and then gets sold at ExxonMobil gas stations. All right? It's all a commodity. So you will very likely have oil produced by, say, Petrobras in Brazil, sent by a carrier fleet that may have been sent out by Chevron to make its way to an ExxonMobil facility to then get sold at a BP gas station. By the way, Mo, you will oftentimes also hear upstream and downstream in various industries. Famously, guys, the steel industry. Yeah, there's upstream and downstream there too. I'm pretty sure it's a little bit different than oil. At least it's a little bit more nebulous. That's why you don't hear it as often. But for example, I heard analysts refer to Nucor buying up the overhead steel door company and the utility pole company as, quote, going downstream. I know Steel Dynamics has their metal fabrication business where they basically buy their own steel and then fabricate it, manipulate it into whatever end customers want. Yeah, Lula is pedal to the metal drilling. Yeah, Brazil's not OPEC, is it? Trade Nations calling out Tesla. Interesting. Let's see. Tesla is doing well today. All right, with less than 5 minutes to go, how's the SPY looking? 439 was the pivot point. No, was it 440? 439 or was it 440? It was 440. By the way, Mo, you might appreciate this. Yeah, 440, thank you. There is a term used in semiconductors called IDM, Integrated Device Manufacturers. That's referring to a company that both designs and manufactures their own semiconductors. Classic examples of that: Samsung, Intel, Micron, and every other memory producer, plus companies like Texas Instruments, even onsemi. And that's compared to TSMC, which would be just manufacturing, or NVIDIA, AMD, who are just design. So yeah, integrated it tends to be a pretty common term for different industries. Always has a little bit different meaning. Crude Chronicle. Hold on, let me see this. ChemLife is calling out Crude Chronicle as, quote, very cool account that's big on oil in this history. Yeah, honestly, guys, like, you don't have to like the oil sector itself. I will tell you right now, the history of the oil industry is really fascinating. I've read like 2 books on it. I love it. It's fundamentally, you got to remember, the oil industry was one of the OG, quote, tech sectors. We are close with less than a minute to go, and we are at 440.02. Can the Bulls sustain? Can the Bulls sustain? There will be blood as a movie, yeah. Oh, need 12 cents, Bulls. 16 cents. Where are we ending? Where are we ending? By the way, volume today seems pretty good. 440.01. 439.99. 83. It looks like the Bears might be in control. 72. It looks like the Bears are in control. And time. I've got us at 439.95. Yes, at 439.89. All right. Bears win, and it was a close one. Wow, 26% of you are winners today. Look at the map. NVIDIA ended today down 2.5%. Google flat. Meta, down 0.5%. CVS up 1.25%. Not bad. Oil did pretty well. Tesla fucking. Semiconductors not named NVIDIA was generally speaking doing well. Purdue, what are some environmentally sound oil stocks then? You have Conoco and Oxy. I'm going to say a statement which is going to sound weird. Oil is, by default, a dirty, dirty industry. This was something I had explained to me at ExxonMobil. All right. Per barrel of oil pulled out of the ground, at least when I was there, ExxonMobil had the least amount of blood spilled, the least amount of corruption, and the least amount of oil spilled. Because you got to remember, if you're investing in a Chevron or an ExxonMobil, you are competing in a commodity complex where their rivals are oftentimes governments. You're dealing with the Venezuelan government. You're dealing with Saudi Aramco. You're dealing with the Nigerian government. All right? So it's not about necessarily, quote, just the cleanest, because by default, by not investing necessarily in some of these like other like governments who just don't give a shit like about spilling, you tend to be in a better situation. I actually like Occidental. Honestly, it's the Warren Buffett factor, but it's also the fact that if you know anything about Occidental, Occidental has a big carbon capture and attempted sequestration business. I think it sounds super cool. Super cool. Yeah, PDVSA, which is the Venezuelan state government. Even Maduro is concerned about their 350 oil spills. Yeah, did anyone talk about Pemex? Pemex is another example. It's the Petroleum Mexico. But yeah, Equinor has to be up there. Yep. Aren't they mostly gas at this point? I'm sure there's still oil from the North Sea, but yeah. Yeah. Spencer took Sick Chief's milkshake and drank it all up. Sick Chief's not happy. Oh. Val Duke. PDVSA is such a shame. Before Maduro, they had capable U.S. educated executives running it really well. By this point, they would have had very capable Venezuelan executives. Yeah. The cool thing is, many of you know, my father was from Cuba. So like growing up, wherever we've lived, like we've always been a part of like the Latino community. So I remember back in Maryland, I used to live in Maryland. Like one of the closest like family friends we had were all Venezuelan. It's excellent. Cubanos, like fuck off. Cubanos are great. The sandwich. But yeah. Vamos. Reuben's better. Oh, no. Cubanos are better. If you guys don't know, Cubano sandwich is excellent. Yeah. Reuben's are not as good. 1v1 me noob. Bastards. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Next week's going to be spicy. We do have some bond issuance on Tuesday. Keep your eyes there. And by the way, tonight, Friday nights are for gaming. I do have a Discord. It's totally free. And tonight, I really want to play some games. We've been slipping recently. But tonight, we doing some gaming tonight. We're going to aim for about 9:30. 9:30 Eastern time. What are we playing today? Depends on how many people we can get. We've been playing recently a lot of Jackbox, which is fun. If we got enough people, I would love to play Goose Goose Duck. But if it's just a smaller group, then I go off and play Splendor or Tricky Towers with my homie Mo. Anyway, hope to see you guys tonight. And until next week, goodbye.